Welcome to Joy in Our Town. My name is Lisa Boldo, and our topic is families. We're talking about the importance of a good marital relationship. We're joined by Tom Gagliano, author of The Problem Was Me. Tom, welcome to the program today. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So the first question I want to ask you is, why does it seem that we tend to be our own worst enemy in a marriage relationship?
Well, first of all, intimacy awakens a lot of powerful feelings for all of us. You know, we have happiness, sadness, a lot of fear, gratitude, closeness, trust or distrust. And I believe that a good deal of that as an adult goes back to, were we safe as children with vulnerability and intimacy? What did we see our parents do? Were they warm and nurturing to each other, kind and supportive? Or was there a lot of yelling and screaming? Was a lot of distrust? And if we come from a family where we saw that it wasn't a safe place, you know, we're going to sabotage that as we grow older, and we could become our own worst enemy.
Do you think that it's always 50-50 in a marriage relationship or not? And do you think it should be?
Absolutely not. I think in a healthy relationship, sometimes one partner or one spouse needs to give more than the other receives. That's just the way it is. You know, if we have a spouse suffering from a work situation, a parenting situation, a health situation, sometimes in a healthy relationship we need to give to them more than we receive. It shouldn't always be the same spouse, because then you're really not having a functional relationship. But I don't believe situations are 50-50. I think sometimes I need to give my wife more than I receive in situations where she needs more than she can give.
Yeah, and I've heard that sometimes it should even be 100-100. You know what I'm saying, right?
Well, if I have expectations for my wife that are a little unrealistic for the situation, it's going to cause predetermined resentments down the road, and I don't want that. I want to accept where she's at and really help her with her struggles in life. And that's really what, in my opinion, makes a strong relationship or a strong marriage.
Absolutely. So tell us, what is the time traveling process?
Very important. Time traveling is when a situation in our present life with our wife or with our spouse or awakens a reaction based on the past. And I'll give you an example. I had a client who came to me, and her and her husband were fighting all the time. And when I went back through her history, I found out that she told me she had a great relationship with her parents, except when she would give them her report card. And if it wasn't all A's, they had this look of disappointment. She felt defective. She felt not good enough. Now, in her adult life with her husband, whenever there's a situation that he looks disappointed in her, or he makes that same kind of face or reaction, she time travels back to when she's 10, feeling defective, she's shutting down, or she's raging with anger. He can't figure out why the reaction is what it is. So when we started to become aware of the time traveling process, then he understood. So if you're going to have a good relationship, it's really important not only to know who your spouse is today, but what were the messages your spouse received as a child, and what messages did you receive as a child? Because all of that stuff is what makes up a marriage.
That is so important. That's really great advice. And so even in the dating process, it's important to really get to know that person, I would say even before marriage, and find out what happened in their childhood that may have affected, right?
It's going to create more empathy in the relationship, more compassion, more understanding. You're not going to sit there wondering, why did they react so crazy in that situation? But if you know what happened earlier, then you have compassion for what is happening in the here and now.
So how does one create that safe environment, you know, when you're speaking with your spouse? How do you create a safe environment so that the other person feels that they can communicate maybe without judgment or, you know?
It takes work and guidelines. And it begins with, I'm not safe if you blank, and you fill in the blank. I'm not safe if when I speak to you, you shut down and you withdraw and go away. I'm not safe if I speak to you if you get angry and rage at me. So you make guidelines for each other. So what you do is you stay in the conversation instead of disband, and then really nothing really gets resolved. It's so important for children to see their parents staying in it and working it out rather than both of them going the other way.
Right, just throwing a fit and just forget this and walk away, and then the child feels what? That they're just, maybe they even feel like it's their fault?
Well, Absolutely. Kids are egocentric, and when things happen in the house, they believe that they've done something wrong. Plus, again, your first question is they take that up until their adult life, and then they learn how to cope. If I have a problem with my spouse, I'm out of here. Instead of staying there, making communication safe with each other. And what safety is really, can I tell you how I feel? And feel like I'm safe, that you're not going to judge me, that you're not going to put me down, that you're not going to persecute me. So safe communications is essential, and from there you can build boundaries, and from there you can build intimacy.
Sounds like it's pretty central.
So it's the foundation with which the house is built on.
And then you can build trust from there.
Absolutely.
And right, if you feel safe, you're just gonna feel good in that marriage, right?
You're going to feel like, you know what, you get me. You understand how I feel. Now, I want to know how you feel. You know, what happens in marriages, because I consult a lot of people, is they walk in with boxing gloves.
Yeah.
And if I want to be right and I got those boxing gloves on, I'm not really able to hear how you feel.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Do you think it's more important to be right or to be close?
What's more important is closeness, but what people are comfortable in is being right. When I have clients, right away they tell me how right they are in each situation, and they give me details and details, and I try to scrape away the details to get under what the details are. And you know, underneath it all, 90% of the time, they both want the same thing. They want to be heard, they want to feel like they matter to each other, and they want to feel like they're loved by each other. And all the other stuff is just a whole bunch of details, and really, that's where, if two people want to be right, they become victims to each other, and nobody's really listening.
That's so good. And so, how does one become aware of maybe an inner voice telling them that they don't even deserve to be loved?
I can bring that back to myself in that I had a really tough childhood.
Yeah.
And what happened to me, I realized one day that no matter how much my wife and children loved me, I wasn't able to let it in, because guess who I didn't love? Me. And if I started to work on me and started to build compassion for me, if when I made a mistake, I didn't become a mistake, it was okay, I started to allow other people in. And that's really so important. And that little voice is, I give the name to the warden. It's an oppressive bully that's constantly telling you what you're doing wrong and constantly sabotaging intimacy when it comes your way, because you feel like you don't deserve it.
Wow. And so, and if you feel like you don't deserve to be loved, do you tend to shut people out? Do you it'll sabotage your relationship,
There's
right?
the word. It's
Yeah.
I'll find ways. I'm listening to this warden, this inner voice, and he directs me on showing the ways that I can push people away or deny intimacy when it comes my way. Now, you know, we all have an inner voice that screams for closeness and love. We all want it. But when we come from that kind of background, that kind of childhood, our actions are like, don't get close, because I'm afraid that if you see who I am, you're going to run away. And we sabotage it in our actions.
Wow. So, I mean, what's maybe a first step for getting out of this if you have grown up with this mentality of, you know, I wasn't good enough, you know, nothing I ever said, you know, and a lot of times too, I think, you know, you want to be heard as an adult, so then you start being more controlling.
Well, the first thing for anything is you got to snitch on yourself. You got to expose this warden.
Wow.
And what I do in groups and in sessions is I expose those voices that are leading your behavior. You know, if I could silence that voice in a person, they don't have to listen to the behavior, and all of a sudden then they could start to allow some love in.
And can they then start to help themselves with silencing that voice somehow?
First essential in my book is awareness. If you got awareness, now you can take the second essential, which is action. But I can't take action if I'm not aware of what's going on inside of me. And then it goes to the third essential, which is maintenance. I got to maintain those different actions. Without awareness, can't take action. Without action, there's really nothing to maintain. So that's what I always talk about.
That's so good. And so you are the author of the book, The Problem Was Me. So going back, tell us a little more about, you know, what is it exactly that inspired you to write this book?
Life inspired me. Just being alone, realizing that if I didn't fix my damage, I was going to have a very lonely life, and I had to take responsibility. And with that, I had to work on myself, and I took a lot of years. And then after I did that, I started to help other people, and that's when the book came along. I wanted to get it to a more broader range of people, and that's what I did. So
do you feel like, well, you said it took years, but do you feel like now, when you're speaking to people, you can help them much faster?
yeah, I get right to the heart of what it is, and I want to expose it. Let's get inside there, bring it to the light, and get rid of the power it has in determining your behaviors.
So, because I know a lot of times people want to go into details about he said, she said, and, you know, this is wrong and that's wrong, and so you can just kind of see right through that, cut away all that you said with the detail.
I try to, and I'll share a story with my son, and this is what I'll show you when I say sometimes we need to ask our spouse what we need from them.
That's so
because
good.
we don't know all the time, and it's okay. My wife may want me to just listen to us sometimes, not give her guidance or solutions, just hear. So I had a situation with my son. He was pitching, 12 years old in a baseball game, and he was pitching terribly. He didn't have his stuff. He ended up losing the game, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell my son to help him that day? I came after the game to pick him up, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll help him with his follow-through, you know, all these daddy stuff that I'm sure a lot of your listeners know what I'm talking about. Well, I show up in front of his friends right there, and he looks at me and he goes, Dad, I need a hug. See, he told me what he needed. It wasn't all the stuff I thought he needed. He told me, I need a hug. And we have that safe environment, the both of us, where he can tell me what he feels, and he knows that I'll give him what he needs. I'm not going to judge him. And I remember he said, when he said, Dad, I need a hug, we just hugged each other for about 2 minutes. That's all he needed. He didn't need me to be the pitching coach. He just needed a hug.
He didn't even need the other stuff. So really, we need to learn to kind of read between the lines and just get right to what does that person need, and then
or ask.
Maybe
say, what do you need from me now?
That's so great.
Maybe my wife will say, Tom, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I need you just to listen. What do you need? But you need to develop the safe communications first.
Well, that is wonderful. And if I were to ask you one quick tip that you could share with our viewers, what would it be?
There's an expression I love, and it says, if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. Change is scary. What's comfortable is staying stuck in the muckety-muck. So sometimes you need to take the hand of others to do for you what you can't do for yourself. Reach out and ask for help.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Tom Gagliano, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for watching Joy in Our Town. Stay tuned. We will be right back.